process the fights that we get into, that we might get into right here on this very stage while we talk about it. We're gonna start, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start off with a little listening session. So check this out. And we're just gonna sit here for the next hour while we play our music.
Girl, she gets what she wants all the time, 'cause she's fine.
When you guys hear this, this is the end result of a really long, arduous process that we kind of go through, right?
That's it. Come on, you're up.
Here's the thing. When it starts out, it doesn't sound like that. It just sounds like a big pile of shit. And this is the sound of us, Nashville.
Yeah, explain that.
When we were working on this record, we went to a bunch of different places. We went to like Paul's studio in LA, at the Kyle's place in Nashville, my place in New York, and we would work for like a week at a time and just do these kind of mad writing sessions. You would sit down, just have different games that you would play yourself. Let's play a song in every key. Let's do this, and somebody would start playing, and you would try not to work too hard on the craft of writing a song. You would just kind of get a melody in your head, run with it, get it to where it was a good point that we would remember later on, and then record it and set it aside. Now, a lot of work would get done, like right up until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and then we'd go to dinner. And then we'd drink wine. Yeah. And then we'd come back and think that everything that we were doing was fucking genius. So, this is what it sounds like when you're writing a song, very much like She's So Mean, which at the time we were calling She Goes, or the Weezer song.
This is, we're really drunk. Just to set it up. Listen to it.
I like to think that she don't know who I am, but she do. I like to think that she don't know what I want, but she do. She do. She goes uptown, take it around, turn it around. Whoa, whoa. She goes uptown, take it around.
So just so we know, as of right, yeah, guys, turn on Kyle's mic.
Is Kyle's mic on?
No, I hear it.
It's not on.
Hello. Hey. So I'm gonna come back to this, but right now, we know that this girl goes up, down, and turns it around several times.
Yeah.
Several times. She goes.
I want to add something to this. Like, so he was saying earlier about the challenges that we would give ourselves, and that was just to keep things moving. Like, we just didn't want ideas to stop moving. It didn't matter if they were good or bad. We weren't going to judge it then. So the thing with this was, there was one chord progression. We couldn't move the chord progression. Everything just had to go over that. And that's literally like, it's Kyle's playing the chord thing, and we're singing pretty much what is, kind of comes off the top of our head.
Yeah, each person was kind of responsible for one of those parts. Like if I would start with the, and I think you were the up, down, turn around, and then Kyle's is my favorite. It's coming up.
Yeah.
She likes it cool. Something on the shelf.
My favorite thing is that you're harmonizing, but there's no words. So
And then we do that though.
Yeah. I find when I listen to these things that we do that an awful lot.
Now I think collectively we were trying to write something as catchy as Katy Perry. Come on, that's what we were doing. Because we talked about that a lot. We were like all these pop songs that don't like musically end up somewhere. It's just like the melody keeps changing. Because I remember us talking about that. So that was part of the idea of like, let's just keep going around and around and just coming up with catchier and catchier hooks. But I think internally, I'm thinking Stacy's mom when I'm playing that. When I listen to that. For some reason, Stacy's mom was in my head, and there you go.
It sounds, when I hear it, I think of Cats.
Cats?
Yeah, not the musical, like actual cats in the alley.
Do you have the next version of that?
That would have been awesome if it
So then
Cats the musical, though.
this is at my studio, right? So this is the next form of it. This is a few months later. We were like, let's work on that thing.
That Windsor song.
She like to think that she don't know who I am, but she do.
Now Pookie has joined the conversation.
She
That's
do.
right. And that groove is now sexy, right?
I pretend that she don't do what she can, but she do.
Oh yeah, it's got a bounce
She
to it.
do. She goes up, down, turn around, give me some more.
Yeah, she does.
She still goes up and down and turns around.
Hell yeah, she does.
She goes up, down, turn around, give me some more.
Now, this is actually.
She likes to go out to the movies, but she don't take her friends. She likes to stay late at the party, cause the fun never
I still like that guitar sound better.
I do too.
all the records to scratch. She's got a walk in the slippers and it won't come back.
That was the original chord.
Why won't she let me go?
Which that melody we then use for the bridge, which is what
Right.
that's the whole breakdown.
That chorus there at that stage of the song is what we refer to as a cop-out. Right? We knew we liked the melody and we were too lazy to try and actually write lyrics. And then later on we sat down and we went through so many different versions of that song. And every song, like every song does that. Like every song kind of starts off with just, there's something about it that you really, really like, you don't know what it is. And then that's the inspiration. I think if you're writing a song, no matter how you're doing it, if we're writing alone, if we're writing all together, you start off with the inspiration. That's the first thing. It's that magical moment that there's a song like over your head that doesn't exist yet. You know, like you hear this melody, you start singing this melody to yourself, and you're like, oh, what is that? What is that? Oh shit, that's nothing. That's me. Oh, that's cool. You know. But then after years and years, you work on the craft of it, and that's the next. You know, that's the next part is how you take that little germ and then turn it into an album that you think other people might want to listen to. Because at the end of the day, I don't care what anybody tells you. You want people to hear your stuff and you want them to like it.
I think there's also something that's really that I did notice the other day that I wanted to say that reminded me that Paul is such a hooky drummer that when you get that jigga digga don't bump, right? It's like there's the melody and then there's the answer.
I think you're a hokey drummer.
And it's a hook within a rhythm, so there's always constant. I think that's the dialogue and the conversation he's talking about that you hear him musically with a band kind of illustrates what's cool about a band.
Yeah,
there's this push and pull of different statements, musical statements.
It's like when I come to the band, and I like years ago, and I had this idea, and I'm like, okay, and this is the way that I heard it in my head. If I fall along the way, pick me up and dust me off. Really kind of like that, almost like a Chris Rea kind of,
It's funny now as being like 40 as opposed to being in my.
Now you
20s,
like that version?
I like that version better.
So you bring it in and we're in the studio, and then Paul gets behind the kit, and this is a testament, I think, to what makes, and I say this with complete taking myself out of the equation, but this is what I think makes us a great band. I think the idea that when you take this, and the way that one person can hear the exact same thing and hear it so differently. So Paul sits down, and the first thing he does in the kit is and I'm like, dude, what song are you listening to? Because that's totally gonna fuck up what I'm doing over here. And we actually got to a fight about it.
You were really mad at me about that.
And then just like that, it's got like muscle to it.
Yeah. And Kyle comes in, and he was actually, tell the story of how you came up. We know the opening riff for Ben.
I gotta jump back into the regular key because I don't know. So he's playing it where he originally wrote it. A lot of times, the producer or the band will decide to take it up for the sound of the instruments or the vocal or whatever. So we took it up. And then in that beginning, before the vocal comes in, you need something, right? So it's right. And so we knew that line was cool. We liked that, but because of the capo situation, which we talked about what a capo is, which is this thing right here, which you put on a guitar to allow the key to go up and down. You can play the same chords and not have to change the shapes and move them up and down. So that's what a capo does. I was thinking he was still in my brain I was thinking the original key, and so I played the wrong note. So when you hear, thank you, I was going to ask you for that actually too. That was actually an accident. So that opening thing, which I can barely do because that bend is so high on an acoustic, right?
And that was the sound in Kyle's brain going, oh shit!
And then I realized as you know the first note goes down, it's like, you know, and then everybody in the studio is like on their feet, like that's amazing. What is that? So that illustrates an idea of, you know, accidents. Yeah, what we call happy accidents.
Happy accidents.
Creative things that seem like they were intentional, you know. And it's nice when you stumble on those, you know.
Those are great. A lot of times.